This truly resonant case happened in West Germany. Marianne Bechmeyer was born on June 3, 1950, in a small town called Zart, located in Lower Saxony, West Germany. Marianne's parents ended up there right after the end of World War II due to the persecution her father, a former SS officer and member of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, suffered. Marianne was raised in a conservative family with a religious inclination. It is rumored that she simply did not have a happy childhood. Her father was domineering, cruel, and also a heavy drinker. He spent more time in the bar next door than with his family. Marianne's mother also did not show any emotions or care towards her daughter. They rarely interacted and practically never spent time together. It seemed that she was not at all interested in what her daughter was doing. Over time, her father's alcohol addiction made him even more aggressive towards his family. For this reason, her mother decided to divorce her husband. It cannot be said that Marianne was saddened by this event. On the contrary, she finally thought that she could be free and happy. However, soon after, her mother remarried another man who turned out to be just as cruel as her biological father. Because of this, she often clashed with her stepfather, calling him a dictator. Unfortunately, instead of taking Marianne's side, her mother always supported her husband. During one such conflict, she kicked Marianne out of the house. Finding herself on the street, Marianne was repeatedly subjected to illegal acts by various men. As a result of one such incident, she became pregnant. In 1966, at the age of 16, she gave birth to her first child. Due to the lack of normal housing and a steady income, Bechmeyer gave her child up for adoption. 2 years later, the girl became pregnant again from her then-boyfriend. Despite the unhealthy relationship with the guy, Marianne insisted on keeping the baby. However, shortly after the baby was born, she was physically assaulted by a stranger. This unpleasant experience triggered a number of psychological problems for the girl. In addition, her boyfriend decided to leave her and abandoned her with the child, leaving her without means of subsistence. Because of this, she again had to give the child to a foster family. After a while, Bechmeyer completely dropped out of school and started looking for work in order to finally be able to provide for herself. Around the same time, she met a man named Christian Holt. He was the manager of the bar where she started working. Soon after they met, they started dating. A few months later, the girl became pregnant with her third child. This time, she was ready to raise the child as she had a source of steady income. Christian, in turn, did not agree with Marianne's decision, and eventually the young people ended their relationship. It is worth noting that breaking up with the father of the child did not affect her decision to give birth. On November 14th, 1972, the girl gave birth to her third child, a girl named Anna. Marianne's mother demanded that she give this child up as well, just like the other two, but she did not want to do it. Besides, she couldn't bear the guilt of giving up her third child. Therefore, Bechmeyer made a promise to herself to be a good mother. Among other things, she had an operation that reduced her chances of having children in the future. As she later admitted, this was a completely normal occurrence at that time. Since then, the girl and her little daughter settled in the town of Lübeck. Despite the various difficulties that Mariana faced, she felt happy. Anna was the only person in her life who did not want to and did not do her any harm. However, raising her daughter alone meant that Mariana had to take her to walk with her at the bar. Because of this, she could only spend time with her child during the rare breaks from work. After a few years, Anna grew up. Bechmeyer's close ones noted that she treated her daughter like an adult despite her young age. She demanded both independence and responsibility from her daughter. Anna, in turn, was an unusually sociable and creative child. She was often completely left to her own devices, especially on days when her mother worked late into the night and then slept in all day. Mariana was well aware that this lifestyle was not suitable for raising a child properly. Sometimes she even thought about giving her daughter up for adoption. However, she tried not to focus on it. Meanwhile, 7-year-old Anna truly enjoyed her freedom. She explored the surroundings of their neighborhood, wandering alone, making new acquaintances here and there, some of whom obviously had rather contradictory intentions, and playing with pets. This is how she got into trouble. This happened on May the 5th, 1980. According to available information, Mariana had a fight with her daughter because, waking up in a bad mood, the girl expressed a desire to skip school. The girl said that she wanted to go to the park to play with her friends. In the end, the girl gave in and allowed Anna to go play, not knowing her true intentions. Returning home from work in the evening of the same day, Mariana noticed that her daughter was still not home. She waited for a few more hours, hoping that the child would show up soon, but that never happened. Because of this, the girl decided to go out and try to find her on her own. She asked some of her daughter's acquaintances and their parents, trying to find out anything about Anna's possible whereabouts. However, no one knew anything. It seemed that she simply vanished into thin air. Realizing that she wouldn't be able to handle this alone, Bechmeyer contacted law enforcement and reported the incident. The next day, another concerned individual came to the police station. It turned out that she intended to report her future fiancé. She stated that according to everything, her partner had murdered the girl who sometimes came to the apartment to play with the cats. At least he confessed to her himself. Among other things, she added that the girl's name was Anna. After listening to the woman's testimony, the police officers realized that everything really pointed to the fact that a 30-year-old man named Klaus had indeed done it. And after he was brought to a state of guilt, in other words, his conscience left him alone. As a result, he told his bride in detail about what had happened. According to her, this provoked a major argument between them, as a result of which Klaus went to one of the bars and got drunk to the point of unconsciousness. Klaus Grabowski had already had problems with the law before. He was previously convicted of sexual assault against 2 girls. While in custody, he underwent a psychological examination, the results of which showed that he was addicted to attraction to minors. Moreover, he could hardly control himself. As a result, the criminal was sent to a psychological help center, not to prison. After several years, the authorities offered him a rather dubious procedure of chemical castration in exchange for early release. Klaus, without hesitation, agreed to the offer. It is worth noting that this procedure was and remains practically painless. In fact, a person who committed certain illegal acts is given a series of injections containing a drug that reduces the activity of hormones responsible for arousal and attraction. The idea is that a criminal who has undergone such correction will never want to commit his crimes again. However, according to the assessment of modern experts, such a measure cannot completely rid a person of obsessive thoughts and fantasies. In this particular case, it turned out to be completely ineffective. First of all, this was due to the fact that the procedure described above was easily reversible. Nevertheless, Klaus was released and soon after ceased to be subject to further control by the authorities. After several years, Grabowski underwent hormone therapy to reverse the effects caused by chemical castration and increase his testosterone levels. Law enforcement officials generally did not interfere with this. This was primarily due to the man informing them of his desire to start a family. He thus pretended to be an ordinary, happy person, maintaining this image to earn a living by opening a small butcher shop. Over time, people almost forgot about his reputation. The day after Anna's murder, police arrived at Klaus's house, but he was not there. He had taken the girl's body and left a note for his fiancée, begging her to meet him at a bar that evening to talk about what had happened. The authorities took advantage of the situation and arrested the man as soon as he arrived at the bar. Immediately after his arrest, Grabowski claimed that he had no intention of touching Anna. He defended himself in the most repulsive way. According to him, the 7-year-old girl had seduced him and extorted money from him. He claimed that the girl manipulated her mother about his attempts to touch her. After this, Klaus mentioned that he had hidden the victim's body in a cardboard box which he left on the bank of a nearby canal. Mariana was shocked and devastated when the authorities came to her house and tell her about her daughter's tragic death. However, the worst part of her life was yet to come. During the lengthy trial, the girl had to listen to the testimony of various witnesses who all said that she was a terrible mother and that her daughter practically grew up on the streets. According to those interviewed, such an incident could have happened at any time, as the girl's mother was hardly ever home, working in a bar until late at night. These words deeply wounded Bachmeier, who was already devastated by grief and anger. However, what bothered her most was not this, but the fact that the accused could possibly escape responsibility for his actions and avoid deserved punishment. It was clear to almost everyone that Klaus had certain mental problems that would almost certainly protect him from going to prison. In this connection, Bachmeier began to develop a plan of revenge on the man who had taken her daughter's life, realizing that she would have to get her hands dirty. Klaus, in turn, continued to stick to his story, emphasizing that it was Anna who seduced him and then, through manipulation and threats, extorted money from him. According to him, the girl's behavior was the key factor that motivated him to commit the crime. He said that he did it to avoid prison after listening to Grabowski's false testimony. Mariana came to the only solution that seemed possible to her at that moment: to acquire a firearm. After buying a pistol, she practiced shooting with it for several months. She did this secretly from her relatives, so no one suspected anything. She understood that she could no longer listen to the criminal's lies. Her patience had simply run out. This happened on March the 6th, 1981. That day, Mariana entered the district court located in the town of Lübeck around 10 a.m., arriving a few minutes late. Her face showed almost no emotion, her gaze was direct, and her hands were tucked into the pockets of her light coat. She stopped a few meters from Klaus and stood behind him, frozen like a statue. At that moment, the trial was in full swing. Everything was proceeding as usual. Somehow, the girl managed to bring with her the same pistol, the world-famous Italian Beretta. How she managed to get past even the strict security cordons in place at the courthouse, even by today's standards, remains a mystery. Mariana felt as if time had stopped. This feeling lasted only a few seconds. Then she felt the opportunity to act. At that moment, her daughter's killer was giving further testimony. The man was stood facing the judge and had no idea what was happening behind him. At that moment, Bachmeier pulled the pistol from her pocket and, in a flash, fired a series of aimed shots, pulling the trigger 8 times. Only 7 out of the 8 bullets hit Grabowski, who immediately collapsed to the ground. The 8th bullet never left the barrel of the pistol. It jammed. Some members of the public saw this as a kind of divine justice. Since only 7 bullets hit Klaus the same number of years Anna had lived. The expression on the face of the girl who had committed this act of justice did not change. This once again spoke of her determination. Having done what she had set out to do, she made no attempt to escape and didn't resist when apprehended by security guards. Soon, one of the court officials approached Klaus and confirmed that there was nothing more that could be done for him. Then, a visible expression of relief appeared on Mariana's face, a sharp contrast to her previous emotions, of course. This was far from the end of the story. The girl was awaiting trial, which she could not avoid. Those who saw Mariana or interacted with her during this period agreed that she was in a kind of trance, trying to make sense of what had happened to her and her daughter. In connection with the girl's condition, a forensic psychiatrist conducted a preliminary examination to try to diagnose or intuitively understand what was going on in her head. As part of this process, he gave her a piece of paper and a pen and then asked her to write something. The specialist was trying to analyze her handwriting. Of course, he did not tell the subject the purpose of the experiment. Mariana, in turn, took the pencil and wrote, "I did this for you, Anna." Next to this phrase, the girl drew 7 hearts, one for each year the girl lived, or for each bullet that hit Klaus. The next day, all the German newspapers published photos of Mariana Bachmeier, calling her the Avenging Mother. This was not surprising, as this was perhaps one of the most famous cases of vigilantism in Europe. Moreover, it was widely covered by both European and global media. Among other things, various television crews from all over Europe came to Lübeck for a long time. Shortly after the incident, Mariana was brought to trial on charges of killing Klaus Grabowski. During the trial, the girl stated that she was not fully aware of the real situation and her actions. According to her own belief, she was in a kind of dream state. She even said that she saw her daughter, who according to her walked past her in the courtroom. Among other things, Bachmeier uttered frankly contradictory words which later put her in a bad light before the judge. She claimed that she had initially acquired a firearm to harm only herself. However, no one in the courtroom believed this. According to the general belief, the girl had been practicing shooting with a pistol for a long time before using it that day. Despite this, many people around the world supported the defendant for taking justice into her own hands and not giving the criminal a chance to be free again. At the same time, there were those who saw her as a criminal who had no right to take justice into her own hands. They condemned her and called her a bad and irresponsible mother who had given up 2 children for adoption. In March 1983, after lengthy deliberations on the verdict, the jury found Mariana Bachmeier guilty of manslaughter and illegal possession of an unregistered firearm. The combined sentence for the two counts was 6 years imprisonment. While the girl was in prison, many ordinary citizens sent her flowers, sweets, and letters of support and sympathy. Nevertheless, there were still people who believed that the state should not condone vigilantism. In addition, the public criticized the West German judicial system, which had allowed the man who had committed unlawful acts against a minor to go for years to restore his libido. After a period of reflection, the authorities came to the decision that Bachmeier did not deserve such a serious sentence. Shortly after her release, Mariana sold exclusive rights and published the story of her life for 100,000 German marks to one of the news magazines. She stated that she did this only to pay all of the debts incurred as a result of the court proceedings. A few years later, Bachmeier married a teacher and moved to Accra, the capital of Ghana, where she remained until 1990. Later, she divorced her husband and moved to Italy, specifically to the island of Sicily. There, she worked in a hospice. Mariana remained in Italy until she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. This forced her to return to Germany. Years later, realizing that the disease was consuming her, she asked an acquaintance to accompany her with a video camera until the last minutes of her life. She died of cancer on September 17, 1996, at the age of 46, in one of the Lübeck hospitals. Her final resting place was a spot in the cemetery next to her daughter's grave. They were finally able to be together. Our video has come to an end. If you want to see more interesting content, subscribe to our channel and press the bell to not miss the new release.